Hey, it's Erica. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. We're already at the end of 2025, and so today I'm going to be talking about the top 10 books that I read in the past year. And I do my year, at least for this purpose, a little bit differently. I go from December 1st of last year, so 2024, until November 30th of this year, 2025. That's my year span of where I will be pulling books from to see which were the top 10 that I read in the past year. I believe one of these is a new release for 2025. A few of them have been released in the last couple of years, and then a couple of these are older, but obviously I still think they are fantastic because that's why they're in my list, I guess. If you see me looking down, it's because I've got my little stacks of books here in front of me, and I figured I would bust out for this purpose. We can call this the list of golden bananas, sort of like Donkey Kong, I guess. I did always love Super Nintendo Donkey Kong. Still have all my games. Really should break those out at some point. But we will refer to all of these top 10 books. Get a golden banana. This is the only thing that I have that's close to a trophy, so it's what we're going for. All of these books get the golden banana this year for being absolutely fantastic. And actually, let me double check, because I ended up reading a ton of books in the past year, and I guess what the number I'm about to come up with is going to include some DNFs. There were, I don't know, a good handful of books that I DNF'd like very close to the beginning, but even so, I mean, I believe that I ended up actually finishing like 70 in the last year. Let me do a quick count here. Wow, okay, actually it was way higher than I thought. I think I'm sitting around 90 books that I actually finished in the last year. That's even with subtracting the ones that I DNF'd. I would have to double check my count, but I believe that that is how many books I finished. A handful of those were audiobooks too, but still, audiobooks, I think like most of us, I tend to be able to get through more quickly than a physical book because I can put it on when I'm like doing chores, or if I have to drive somewhere, I can just put it on. I don't have to actually sit down and dedicate time to reading it. In case you did not know how audiobooks work, good Lord, if this is your first time watching me, I don't usually try to explain things. They're just like fundamentally basic, as though my viewers are children, but so this is like the end of a long work day. It is immediately before the holidays here, and so I am I don't know, somewhat frazzled, running on very little sleep, a lot of caffeine, but we are gonna do this. We're gonna talk about my top 10 favorite books that I read in the past year, and let me bring up my little list so I can make sure we go in order, and then we're gonna talk about them. I won't spend tons and tons of time talking about each one, because I know I have a tendency to let my verbosity run away with itself, and a lot of these books I think I've already talked about. Well, maybe not a lot of them, but some of them at least I've already talked about more in depth in other videos. So for anywhere that that's the case, I will link any video with more of my thoughts. I'll put that in the video description so you can check if you are interested to hear more about the books. Give me the opportunity to do that. Anyway, I am gonna do a total final countdown, right? We're gonna go book number 10, then we'll finish. We'll finish with the top book of the year. So, number 10 on my list, I read The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This is, of course, a retelling of the Greek myth of Achilles, right? Probably not a shock considering what the title of the book is. This was my first time reading Madeline Miller, and I really enjoyed her telling of the story. I thought that it brought such humanity to the characters, and I like, it's a very relatively short book here. What is this? It's 378 pages, this edition is, and she did so much in that short amount of time with making me care about the characters and the romantic relationship like between God. And I read this, I think this was actually the first book of the year that I read, because the main character that we follow in this, frankly, whose name is escaping me at the moment, which is great because this was like one of my top 10 favorite books of the year. The main character in this is like the romantic interest of Achilles, and they've known each other since they were like kids, and so you see them over the years like develop into this much like closer, deeper romantic relationship where they're clearly like very clearly care about each other. And I'm not typically a person where I enjoy having a romantic relationship in a story, but usually if it's like kind of the main point, I'm not typically into that. But I felt like their relationship took a lot of center stage here. I really enjoyed it. I will absolutely read more by Madeline Miller, and I don't know if you want a good Greek retelling. I mean, this is, so many people love this book, and I think that it lives up to the hype that it gets. Yeah. And you know what? I realized as I go to set this down, just like I always do, I did not once again consider where the hell I'm gonna put these books that I've already talked about, because I got little stacks in front of me and nowhere to put them. So you know what? I've got a giant box here that you can't see. A giant box. It's a gift. I'm just gonna set them right there and hope that they don't topple. Okay? All right. And number 9, coming in at a very strong number 9 on my list, is The Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison. This author has written several more books within the same world. And actually, I just finished The Grief of Stones, which it doesn't center on the main character. The main character in this, if you couldn't tell by the name of the book, is the Goblin Emperor, right? There's some characters in this and professions, I guess, events that kind of work as the setup for like a side story, a spin-off, if you will, a spin-off for the other series that she's writing. I think it's maybe called The Cemeteries of Amalo. I can't guarantee that, but basically you can read them all together because they all take place within the same world. The characters are related between the two, so it's very easy to follow along. This book, though, once again, another author who within such a relatively short number of pages can like do such incredible world building and suck you into the story. Like this one is just a little bit over 400 pages, and I loved the way because the characters in this, it focuses on elves and, I was gonna say dwarves, no, this is not Lord of the Rings, elves and goblins. And the author doesn't do these huge info dumps. She just kind of tells the story as though it's very normal for you to be in this world, and just immerses you in it, and that's how you go along and learn about the characters and like the society that's set up and the social norms, like cultural norms. And I just loved the way that she does this. A lot of people describe this like the series as kind of a cozy fantasy series, and it didn't initially and I feel like I might have even talked about this when I talked about the book before, back when I read it. It wasn't initially apparent to me why it would be considered cozy, because like each of these books, both this one and then the subsequent books that I've read so far in the series, kind of center around like murder mysteries. Which, I mean, I guess a murder mystery could be cozy, but it's not really expected in this kind of context, but the way that I end up feeling as I'm reading these books is just kind of comforting. I really like the characters that you follow, and you see the characters like they're not perfect, but they're trying to do the right thing. Like you see they're trying to be good people, and they're just, everybody's out here doing their best. Well, not everybody, but like the main characters that we're following. And it just, I don't know, I read them and they make me feel good. So I really loved this book. I've read 2 subsequent books from her. I read a couple of short stories in the same series as well, and I have one left. I think it's the Tomb of Dragons or something like that. One left, and then I'll be caught up on this series. I'm really, really hoping that she continues to write in this world, because I really enjoy it. If you want, if you want something that's like, I don't know, a cozy fantasy mystery with fantastic world building, pick this up. Tip though, now having read several books in this series, do not try to figure out the naming conventions. Like the language that's used for like naming conventions in here, and like the names themselves are like 15 letters long. Don't try to figure it out. Don't try to like be preoccupied even with memorizing these things. It will distract you, and frankly, it's not necessary. Just roll with it. Just roll with the story, let her suck you in, and it's so enjoyable. I'm gonna double check because I think number 8 is my ebook. Please hold. Yes, number 8. And I guess it should be said, as much as I really wanted to, this year I am not doing installments in my list where I'm like, this series, look, I really wanted to, because I finished some excellent series this year, but I forced myself to do just one book for every place on this list. So I'm only choosing one book, but I'm going to elaborate more on this, I think, for the next couple of installments here on, I guess, kind of like my thoughts on that and why it matters. So having said all that, number 8. Number 8 of the Golden Banana, right? Number 8, I'll put it up. It is The White Song by Phil Tucker. This is the 5th and final book in the Chronicles of the Black Gate series. I looked back through because I actually read all 5 books in this series in the past year, and so I looked at them and I rated this one the highest, and I have some distance from reading the series now because I think it's been a few months since I finished it, and I have to say I agree with past Erica. I think I rated this late. I really loved this series as a whole. As a whole, I think it's a 5-star series. I did not rate every book in the series 5-star, but like in a general sense, I think this is such a good series overall. But the 5th book I felt was so strong. He took the story in a completely like unexpected direction that was exciting for a 5th installment, and he wrapped everything up in an appropriate and interesting and an exciting conclusion. This series, it's a portal fantasy, and I feel like it came out maybe about 2015. Heard a lot about it at the time, and I know people talk about Phil Tucker in general, but not so much this series. But this, like, it's a portal fantasy, so throughout the series, we're watching the characters kind of discover more about how these portals work, and some partially forgotten and partially misunderstood magic. Like, there is magic that exists in this world and the characters know that, but like the nature of it and its capabilities has, it turns out, been completely misunderstood like this whole time. So you watch the characters through this series go along. There's tons of battles. Like, if you want some epic battles, it's got that. Like, this definitely it's, you know, sort of a medieval fantasy setting. There's, I don't know, some are there actual dragons? I don't know. Do they call them something else? Look, there's some like big ass fantasy creatures flying around in this thing. There's like demons or whatever. This series really had it all. And how am I gonna say this? There was no installment in this series that just felt kind of like a placeholder. I felt like the author moved the series along like the whole time. So anyway, the final book is the book. Even though I think overall this series is a 5-star series, I strongly recommend it. If there's ever a nice copy that gets put out, like I know Phil Tucker has done Kickstarter stuff, if he ever does something like that for this series, 100% I won't hesitate to buy it, because I would read this again. I've got the audiobooks, I'm gonna listen to them at some point, and it was just really great. But yeah, it's so nice to get to a series, especially, I don't know, 5 books is kind of a longer series, right? Most of what we see, I feel like, is a trilogy, but it's nice to get to the end of a 5-book series and have it close really strong. It's really satisfying. So this was a worthwhile installment, and I'm excited to read more by Phil Tucker. And number 7 on my list is going to be an installment from the Emily Wilde series. This is book number 2, Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. And again, this is another perfect example where this trilogy is a 5-star trilogy. I loved this trilogy. I will be rereading it. I have listened to, I know I for sure listened to the first book on audio. I think I listened to the second one too. I will physically reread this. I will listen to the audiobooks because those are fun and they're done really well. This is, some people describe this series as romantasy, and if it is, I'm actually really happy to hear that, because that means that there is some kind of subgenre of romantasy that I really like, and that's whatever this is, because I love the Emily Wilde series. So Emily Wilde, if you don't know, it takes place in kind of like an alternate, it's an alternate history version of our world, and I think it takes place maybe the early 1900s, if I'm not mistaken, over in the UK. Emily is a researcher. She works for a university, and her area of expertise is fairies. If you could not tell, like the first book is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, right? Like that's what she's all about. So she's a scholar, and that's her area of expertise. She researches fairies, and so she is trying, like, I can't talk too much about what goes on in this book without giving away a lot of what ends up happening in the second book, the first book, but so in the first book, you watch Emily where she goes kind of like on a research expedition to try to find a group of fairies that like haven't really been documented yet. And in this book, she continues her quest to get to fairyland, I guess. Let me just leave it at that. I don't want to spoil anything. So overall, 5-star series. This is so fun. Emily does have a romantic interest in this, and they're definitely like an I don't know, opposites attract, and they have a cute dynamic that really works for me, and I just really enjoy this. I loved this series so much that I immediately went and bought like all the other books by Heather Fawcett that I could. So they're waiting right now for me to read them on my shelf. She's got another book coming out in the next few months, maybe early next year, I think. I pre-ordered that. Because I'm excited to read that too. So I love the way that she writes. I love the way that she tells a story. It's lighthearted, but there's also, I don't know, there's some serious things going on too. It was so enjoyable to read, and I'm really excited to read more by Heather Fawcett. Number 6 on my list. Number 6 on my list is number 1 in a series, and no other, and you know what? It's the end of the year. I have my jingly little jingle bell earrings on right now, so if the jingles bother you, I'm kind of sorry, but like I'm also not, because I can only wear these for like a very short amount of time every year and be obnoxious about it and be like, well, but you see, it's like December, so I can wear these. Anyway, this next book is number 1 in a series. No other book in this series is out yet. This was a brand new release. I read it like right after I got my hands on it. This is The Outcast Mage by Annabelle Campbell. I just felt like this was fantastic, especially it's a debut novel by this author. I felt like it was such a strong debut. In this story, we follow our main character who is, so she lives in this society where it's commonly known that there are mages, right? And they have these mage powers, and our main character is like supposed to be a mage, but her magic isn't really doing magic stuff. So she's worried about this, and she's worried about what that means for her place in society if she can't figure out like how to get the magic going the way that it's supposed to be going. And she finally gets a mentor who is seems to kind of have some ideas as to what how he might be able to help her and what might be going on. And we discover as we go through this story, there's a lot of like political intrigue and social upheaval going on that I won't go too much into. But the end of this book, it's a massive cliffhanger that is setting up for, again, the rest of the series to go in a vast new direction, which is very exciting. I looked recently, like within the past week, and I don't see an upcoming release for book 2, so I don't know, maybe she's still working on it, I have no idea. Whenever she publishes the second one, God, I hope it gets published, I'll absolutely be reading this, because I thought it was so good. And especially too, like I said, for being a debut novel from an author like this, I thought it was just done really well. Now we're gonna get into the top 5. When I tell you, so like I looked at all my books, and frankly I had a really good reading year. And in fact, I'll tell you, because I keep a little spreadsheet, because I'm neurotic. I keep multiple rating spreadsheets, actually, that's how neurotic I am. But when I look at my ratings for the last year, my average rating was about a 4.4, and a lot of that has to do with I've gotten more comfortable. If I know that a book is not working for me, no matter where I'm at in that book, I'm just gonna stop reading it, because like life is too short. I own way too many books, and for books I don't own that are like infinite that I want to read too, I simply do not have the time to waste on books that I think are shitty. So that's part of what has contributed to the rating being what it is this year, is because if I'm reading a book and I realize I'm like, I just don't want to read this book, I just stop reading that book. So all of that to say, because my average rating is so high in the last year, it was really hard to choose only 10 books to begin with, and it was insanely difficult to put the top 5 books in some kind of order. Like, I knew what my number 1 book is gonna be, and that deserves for sure the number 1 spot, but the other 4 books, I mean, I just kind of had to pick an order. I don't really have a justification as to why one of the books is number 5 and why one of the books is number 2, because I loved all of these books so much. So let's talk about it. Number 5, just like basically everyone, The Will of the Many by James Islington. This is book 1 in the Hierarchy series. I very recently, I want to say end of November maybe, finished The Strength of the Few. It was really, really difficult to choose which of these 2 books I was gonna put in the top 10. Ultimately, the reason that I ended up choosing this one and not The Strength of the Few, which is of course the sequel, is because, so I guess let me tell you first kind of what I really loved about this one, and then I think it'll be clearer, especially if you've read this, why this one is on the list and the other one, while I absolutely loved it, not quite on the list, right? In this series we follow, it's a society that borrows heavily from like ancient Rome, and so we follow our main character, and he is an orphan. I won't go into the mysterious reasons as to why he's an orphan. All you need to know is that he's an orphan, and he gets adopted by this very very powerful politician, I guess would be the right word for him. And the guy that adopts him wants him to go into like this private school to develop. If it's a private school that basically is, I don't know, it's for the children of like rich people and politicians or whatever, and they go there and basically like earn the right to go on into positions of power within like the different government bureaucracies, right? Man, that's like the most simplified way I can explain this without being here for a half an hour. And so our main character is supposed to go to the school and figure out like the answer to an ongoing mystery that personally affects the man who adopted him. So while our main character is there, he discovers even more mystery, and like it's a whole thing. The backdrop to all of this is that the magic within this world is based on people's will, kind of like your energy or your life force is kind of how I took it, where each person is kind of relinquishing some of that energy through the magic to someone else. So the hierarchy, it kind of looks like a pyramid, which, man, do I have... There's no pyramid on this for me to show you an example, but kind of how it happens, like the people with the least amount of power on the bottom, they cede like most of their will, right, to whoever's above them. Whoever's above them gets all of that will from a bunch of people and then cedes a bunch of that to whatever person is above them, and on like up through the pyramid. So like the people at the top have all of this power, right? Like phenomenal cosmic power kind of a thing. This was a fantastic book. Watching our main character like discover all of this new information, because it's one of the best ways that I love is to learn along with the main character. And so I loved that. It was very like fast paced. It was, I would say, I don't know, was it maybe the first half I was kind of like, I mean, it's good, but I don't really get why everybody's losing their minds over this book. And then everything just like took off at once. And then when I tell you, I don't know, probably like the last 20% of this book was just like an insane fever dream, like frantically having to finish the book to see what was gonna go on. And so I really loved this book. I'm so excited for book number 3. I also loved The Strength of the Few. Okay, I read that maybe a month after I finished this one, so I was like perfectly primed, like hyped to read The Strength of the Few. And I won't spoil anything. Strength of the Few, though, it's a story told in a very different way than book number 1, and that's not a bad thing, but the formatting is very different. The story suddenly splits off, and so instead of like just following kind of like one plot along, you're following multiple plots at the same time, which again, I'm completely in for complicated stories, but it was a more challenging read. Like I had to bust out my posties to be able to keep the chapters straight, to know like what I was following along in the story, and so it was good, but it took it took a lot more active work on my part to be able to keep everything straight that was going on. And so it was purely for that reason that I chose this over The Strength of the Few. I thought that The Strength of the Few was an excellent continuation, and I loved the different direction, like all the new information that we got in book number 2. I'm super excited for book number 3. I've heard conflicting information as to how many books are going to actually be in this series. I've heard a lot of people seem to be saying 4 books in the series. I'm hoping that that's correct. But whatever he wants to write as far as number of books in this series, I will read it. One thing I will say, and then I'll put this down because I don't want to be here for like a half an hour, or I guess a half an hour on any one book. One thing I will say is, so this story, the main character could absolutely be considered, I don't know, what's the male version of a Mary Sue? I don't know, like a Johnny Sue or something. Basically, the main character is, I don't know, kind of just stuff works out for him. He's good at a lot of things, like real fast. And in the hands of an author who doesn't know how to deliver that, frankly, that kind of shit pisses me off. Like, it's easy to make me mad with that because I love really good, like, complex, interesting characters. And there is a lot of interesting, like, especially backstory about our main character here, but man, everything just kind of works out for this guy. And so in the wrong hands, that kind of a thing is not what I want to read, but it didn't bother me at all in this book. I think the story, the lore, everything that James Islington has built up for this series is so interesting that I am okay with maybe the characterization being a little, I don't know, I hate to say lacking because it makes it sound like it's, I don't know, I thought that it's shitty. Some people, from what I've seen, do seem to be having a real issue with the main character, but I don't. I typically like to see more compelling characters than maybe what the characters are that we have in this story, but the plot and the world building, like every other component of the story is so interesting, I think, that I'm willing to forgive some of those things that might normally bug me, if that makes sense. I also debated, do I pull the first book or the second book, because I read them in very quick succession and I really loved both of them. Overall, so far, this is a 5-star series. I'm just gonna hold it up as if you couldn't tell. So this is obviously The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is book 1 in, what is it, Shadow of the Leviathan? Is that the name of this series? Does it even say? Let's take a look. Pardon me while I casually try to kill some time and dig through here. All right, it doesn't say this is the Broken Binding edition, but I'm like 99% sure that the name of this series is The Shadow of the Leviathan. Am I thinking of, like, because I went to a metal tour, I don't know, in the last year or something that was also named something like that? Am I confusing the name of this series with the name of a metal tour? It's entirely possible. Anyway, so I read this and then I read A Drop of Corruption, the sequel. I absolutely loved them both. This is basically, I mean, it's Sherlock and Watson in a fantasy setting. Our Sherlock is this woman who is kind of out of her mind. She's a lot like Sherlock, actually, kind of out of her mind, likes mind-altering substances, doesn't really care about social mores, and just really brilliant, and is very aware that she's really brilliant. So I loved this book. I flew through this so fast, and the same with like the sequel. I loved it so much too. Again, I have no clue how many books this man is going to put into this series, but I will read them all. This was so good. The world that he's built is so unique. Like with the weird, well, you can even tell by the cover, right? Like there's some like botany stuff going on. I feel like I called it biology stuff when I talked about this book in a video before, which I mean is not entirely wrong, but kind of a ridiculous thing to phrase it as. So like some weird plant stuff going on in this, which fits along to the theme of like the murder mystery that they're trying to solve. And so it was so good the way, and I think that is what I'm realizing now as I'm thinking about some of these stories that I've chosen for my top 10. One of the things that I love is, one of the reasons I read fantasy, an author that does world building that I can really buy into and immerse myself in, and I don't question like, well, that wouldn't make any sense in this context, because like even though it's fantasy, which means it's inherently not real, I still need things in a story to make sense in the context in which they take place, right? So I still need that, even when it's not realistic, when it's not our world, whatever, it still all needs to like fit together in a way that makes sense. And all of the books I'm realizing as I go through that's what I love. I love authors who can give me these just outrageous things that are so different from what we know in our world, but I'm still like, yeah, I can buy in. I'm all in. Let's do it. So I really loved this. I can't wait for the next installment. I think the next book is coming out maybe in like the summer, I guess. I think that's probably a tentative date at this point, because it always is, right? Until things actually get like super close to publishing. But that's what I saw, that there's at least gonna be one more. I'm hoping he continues, because man, I think that he really just nailed it here with the characters and the world that he's built. It's fantastic, and I'm not the only one, because you look everywhere and people are like, oh my god, the Tainted Cup is so good. It is so good, and everybody should read it. I'm kind of tempted to talk about number 2 and number 3 together, because they do go together, and one of them I'm able to talk about a whole lot more than the other, because one of them will spoil the hell out of the reason that I loved it so much if I say too much about why I loved it. So I'm gonna hold them up, and I'm gonna talk kind of about both of them at the same time. But I will confirm which one was number 3 and which was number 2. Okay, so my number 3 book is The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie. I absolutely loved this. I flew through it. One of the greatest books I've ever read in my life. It was so good. And then number 2, Joe Abercrombie, Red Country. This was incredible. Okay. So The Heroes, most of this book takes place over the course of, I believe it's about 3 days. It's a 3-day battle that is told in detail, and it's done in such an interesting and flowing and seamless way. I hate to use the word realistic because I've never been in a battle, but reading this, it felt like it could be realistic. And so the way that he told the story too, I thought was brilliant, because he would tell it from the perspective of different characters, and some of the characters we might only ever see one time. We might only see them for a paragraph where we're watching the battle or these events unfold through their eyes, hearing their thoughts, and then suddenly it will switch, because like maybe that person is suddenly killed in the battle, and then we switch perspectives, and maybe we switch perspectives to the dude that was standing next to that guy that we just like saw his perspective as he got killed, or maybe we switch to the perspective of the soldier who just killed that guy. Like, and just the transition, the way that Abercrombie manages to tell this story, keep it fresh for 3 days and like hundreds of pages worth. How many pages is this damn book? It's like a 500-page book that this man tells a story about a 3-day battle, manages to keep it compelling for that entire time, and it was just, it is obviously very violent. I don't think that if you have any familiarity with Joe Abercrombie, that should be surprising, but especially knowing this is about a 3-day battle, and it is graphic in what's going on. But I didn't feel like gratuitous. Again, I felt like, having never been in a battle, unless playing Civ counts, because I've played an outrageous number of hours of Civ and waged war that way. But as far as actually physically being in a battle, never been in one. But having never been in one, this felt very realistic as I read through it. And that's one of the things that I love about Joe Abercrombie's writing, is just, even though it's all fantasy, right, he manages to really, with the way that he writes his characters in such a realistic way, it makes things very relatable and personal, and just excellent execution. Having just gushed about that book, right? I loved Red Country even more, and I can't really say a lot about why without spoiling the reason. Without spoiling a big part of the book, which was trying to figure out if I was right about what I understood was going on, was part of the enjoyment of this book for me, so I really don't want to say a whole lot. This is described as a Western, which I understand why, and also I find it odd because I don't typically like Westerns. I've never, I guess outside of this, I don't think I've ever found a Western where I was like, yeah, that's really good. They just don't do it for me. Whether it be like a book or movie or whatever, I really am just not into like a Western. Except this. I loved the hell out of this. We follow, so this takes place, of course, both of these books. These are, I guess I should say, can you see my little face? There we go. So these are both standalones within the First Law series. So they're part of the Great Leveler trilogy, which is the standalone trilogy, which takes place between the First Law trilogy and the Age of Madness trilogy. I thought since I finished that series this year that I was gonna stop having to do like that 60-second explanation of where books fall within the world of the First Law, but apparently we're not quite done yet. So these are like two of the books that are in the middle, right? So they're standalone, but I don't think that you would really get, you could probably read through them if you haven't read anything else in the First Law, but you would miss a lot of what makes so much relevant and impactful in these. Like, you could still follow along, and I don't think there'd be any issue that way, but so much of the emotional impact, I think, would be taken away if you hadn't read the First Law trilogy before you pick these up. Anyway, so in this Red Country, we follow, this takes place in like the Far Country, which is like middle of nowhere, like even less civilization than the North, kind of rural, just like frontier, nothing as far as the eye can see, right? Except maybe like a little outpost here or there, but just like miles and miles and miles of just vast nothingness, right? And so we follow some tiny groups of people that are out kind of like making their way through the Far Country, trying to kind of, I don't know, forge a new life for themselves. And a lot of it, the direction that the characters end up going is they all kind of get drawn into trying to find the children of one of the characters. The children have been abducted by kind of like this roving band of, I don't know, outlaws or whatever, bad guys. And so we watch these people try to go and find them kids that were taken. So it's, I don't know, it's a simple setup, but the execution once again is excellent. I can't really say, like I said, more than that without giving away a, like, part of the massive part of my joy in reading this was along the way I was thinking, I think I really know what's going on. Am I right? Like doubting myself, trying, like picking up little clues. And so part of the fun along the way was trying to figure out if I knew what was going on. So I don't want to say more than that because I don't want to take that joy away from anyone else to have to. So yeah, I don't know, probably the shock of no one. I love Joe Abercrombie, and I do have The Devils that I still need to read. I'm going to try to read that next year, but otherwise I'm finished with The World of the First Law, at least for what's written as of right now. I know he might be writing more. If he writes more, I will be reading them, but for what is currently published, I'm caught up on The World of First Law. And now we've come to it. We have come to the biggest banana. That's what she said. Number one. You come to the number one book, and you know what, let me get Mr. Abercrombie out of the way so I've got a lot of room here. This has been a long time coming, and I just absolutely love this book, and I love this series. This is, I don't know, a 10-star series at this point. If you've watched any other video that I've made in the last few months, you probably won't be surprised at all for what I'm going to say is number one. So my number one book of the year is going to be Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. Once again, the entire series of Dungeon Crawler Carl is, I don't know, infinite stars. Like, it is already one of my favorite series of all time. This series has taken over my life. I why did I say that so weird? I proselytize to everyone about it. Like everyone that I encounter, I proselytize to and tell them that they really need to read Dungeon Crawler Carl. If you've been, I don't know, I chose this version of it to hold up because it's probably what most people are familiar with at this point, because like Mr. Dinniman has blown up. In the last couple of months, I've convinced several coworkers to pick up Dungeon Crawler Carl, and they're like, oh my god, like other people are telling me about this too. So they've all seen the cover, you've all seen the cover. At first I really didn't like this cover, but they've grown on me. The hard covers have grown on me. Anyway, very shortly what it's about, if truly you have no idea. But man, if you haven't heard of this, I'm so curious because it really seems to have taken off in the past like 6 months with how popular it is. We follow our main character Carl, and like he's minding his own business one night. His cat jumps out the window. Well, his soon-to-be ex-girlfriend's cat jumps out the window. I've told this spiel like a million times. I've basically got a script going on for it. Cat jumps out the window. Carl's like, I gotta go get this cat. So he runs outside of his apartment building and he's trying to get the cat out the window. All of a sudden there's an alien invasion. It's instantaneous. These aliens invade and smash every building that's on the surface of the earth into the ground. Like they are smashed into the ground. Everybody in the buildings all over the planet Earth are dead. Like the only people that survive are the people who are outside, right? So the aliens are like, look, this planet's ours now. We're gonna like mine the shit out of the resources. So you can stay on the surface of the earth and try to survive if you want to or whatever. Your other option is to go down into this 18-level dungeon that we've built underneath the surface of the earth. And if you can make it to level 18, you can like have Earth back or whatever. P.S. We're gonna broadcast your journey through the dungeon to the universe because it's our form of LOLs and entertainment or whatever. So Carl and Donut, the cat, descend into the dungeon and the series goes from there. There's currently seven books published in the series. Book 8 is coming out, I believe, in May. I have heard that tentatively there's going to be 10 books in this series, and I will read as many as Matt Dinniman wants to write. This is a series where, especially like the premise where, and it really is like each book where we're watching the characters go through this dungeon. It's not like a bait and switch where it maybe starts off in the dungeon, but now we're doing some other shit. No, I'm on book 7 right now. I'm in the middle of book 7. We're in the dungeon. We're going through that dungeon, okay? To keep it fresh and compelling, and not only that, but like so many books in, and this is the conversation I've had with other people too that I know that are reading it, each book gets better than the last, which is so unusual, especially for a longer series, and especially one that has gotten so big in popularity, because you see authors so many times where, I don't know, the quality, I don't know, it drops off, or maybe some middle installments are kind of stagnant. This one though, it is just, it's a snowball of quality. Is that it's a weird phrase that I just came up with, but it's like snowballing in quality. Does that make sense? The quality is just getting more and more. We're on this train and it cannot be stopped, and it blows me away that the author is able to do that and turn this outrageously ridiculous premise into a series that is so deep. Like the themes that it's exploring, humanity and exploitation, like the nature of greed and colonialism and consumerism and like capitalism, like all of these things that are tied in, these themes that are done in a way where you are aware of it, right, as you're reading the series, but it's delivered in a way that, number one, it's very entertaining. Like, this is a very funny series, but it's like such an outrageous premise, but still so emotionally impactful. Like, a few days ago, I was at page, I don't know, maybe like 150 pages in to book number 7. And what was going on, which I won't spoil right now, I was just like crying because it was so emotionally significant what was happening in the book. And then funnily enough, a couple days later, I was on the Dungeon Crawler Carl sub on Reddit, and somebody made a post that was like, I'm on chapter 11 of book 7. Am I the only one like intensely crying at this? And I was like, oh my God, I don't even have to check where that is in the book. I know exactly, because that was where I was just crying like a baby about that book just like 2 days before I read that post. So it's so incredible to find an author who can deliver a story that works on so many different levels, and you really find yourself caring deeply about the characters, and you can buy into the ridiculous shit that's going on. It's incredible, and like, it's taken over my life. I don't even know what to say beyond that. I love this series. However many books this man wants to put out, I will get them all. And actually, so as I was pulling the books right for this video, and I was like, which one do I pull for Dungeon Crawler Carl? Because you know what? How many versions of the book do I have? Well, let me show you. I've got this one, right? This is the traditionally traditionally published hardcover. Mr. Matt Dinniman. I think probably if you're familiar at all with this series, you probably know he started out doing like self-publishing this series, and then it blew up, and so he got picked up by, I think it's Ace. Yeah, Ace picked him up, and they are like sparing no expense in the marketing for his series, and it's totally like worth it. It's a worthwhile series to pick up. But that was not my first exposure to Dungeon Crawler Carl, because I follow like different like fantasy or reading areas on Reddit, and so like when he started publishing this series, I think he started writing it, what was it, like maybe 2012 2019 or 2020. Very shortly thereafter, people all started mentioning it from time to time, and it sounded interesting. And so like I picked up this one. This was the self-published first dungeon. Well, okay, this is not like the first self-published one. We won't get into the mythological original cover, but this is the self-published paperback that most of us know. So I picked this up and it sat on my shelf for probably like, I don't know, 3 years. 3 years. It was a book where I was like, yes, I'll get around to that series. I'll get around to it. And it didn't happen because my TBR is endless. But finally this year I was like, enough is enough. This series is blowing up. It's way overdue for me to read. So I did. And I'm so glad that I did, but I still love this version. And I have most of the other paperbacks too. And in fact, for book number 8, which is coming out in May, so Matt is allowed to do a very limited run to publish paperback that is like matches this for his new books, because obviously Ace doesn't want like competitors to their published formats of it. But he I think it's on the signed page is where I pre-ordered it from. They're allowed to publish like 10,000 copies, or maybe it was Grim Oak, I don't know. One of those two is where I got it from. So I pre-ordered it, so it's gonna be book 8 that matches this. There's only 2 of the paperbacks that I'm missing because they were only published for like a couple months before they had to get pulled, because the author got his like publishing deal, so he had to stop selling the paperbacks. Maybe someday I'll get those, but they run for like $400 a pop from what I found, and I just can't justify that for a paperback copy. Anyway, I love this one. I took this one with me to Comic-Con where I got to meet Matt this year, and he signed my little copy, and I got a little bookmark. So I love this version of it. I also I was a late backer to the Kickstarter that he did for the first volume of Dungeon Crawler Carl. This is a really cool volume too. Oh my god, and look at the art. So you see, this is from like the opening scene in Dungeon Crawler Carl where Carl runs outside to get Donut out of the tree. Yeah, so I love this edition of it, and actually he just did a Kickstarter for books 2 and 3, and he also gave the opportunity to pick up a copy of book number 1 Kickstarter if you missed it. I think you can still be a late backer to that if you're interested, so you can go and get those if you want to, I'm pretty sure. But that's not all, because that's 3 physical copies of this damn book, right? And that's just book number 1. So I also have, this is the Dungeon Crawler Carl audio immersion tunnel version. God, that glare. This is by Sound Booth Theater, who Jeff Hayes is the incredible narrator of the audiobooks for this series, and so his company did sort of like a, from what I understand, this is kind of like a more full production of book 1, and I believe they're doing it for the others as well. But I love also that he pandered to the millennial fans of Dungeon Crawler Carl, and this is not actually a cassette. It's actually pretty clever. It's like a USB with the audiobook on it, but it comes in this cute little case, and it makes us feel nostalgic for like the 80s and 90s, because we got this little cassette looking thing. I also have the traditional audiobook for Dungeon Crawler Carl. So that is 5 copies of book 1 that I own in various formats. Someday I'll probably get the ebook as well. Like right now, I believe that he's only allowed to sell the ebooks through Amazon, and he's also, I believe, only allowed to do the audiobooks through Audible. So I try to avoid buying book stuff through Amazon when I can, only because I try to support like actual bookstores whenever possible. It's not possible with the audiobooks for this because they're an Audible exclusive, so I do have those, but I don't like need the ebooks for this at this point. I've got 5 fucking copies of book 1 in different formats, so I think I can survive not having the audiobooks for the moment. Whenever they stop being like an Amazon exclusive or whatever, then I'll probably pick up the ebooks at that point. But yeah, I love Dungeon Crawler Carl, and Dungeon Crawler Carl, you get the biggest banana. You get the biggest banana for 2025. That's what she said. For your fantastic series. And like, it really just, I don't know, I can't really describe like how much positivity this has brought to like my life. I haven't been this excited about a series in a really long time. And I don't know, it's really enjoyable, and it seems to be relatable to so many people. I've gotten like the friends and various people, like my coworkers, random strangers that I've talked to and told them to pick this up. The people that I know that have ended up doing it have really liked it, and I want him to keep writing anything, and I will read it. He does have a non-Dungeon Crawler Carl book coming out in February that I have pre-ordered as well. That's Operation Bounce House. Although I suspect, so I subscribe to the Broken Bindings science fiction and fantasy sub. That's their new sub where they're doing like new releases, and they don't tell you ahead of time what it's gonna be. But the rumor is that for like the February release, it's gonna be Operation Bounce House by Matt Dinniman. So if that's correct, then I'm getting what I'm sure will be a really cool special edition of it from them. And if that's the case, then I will probably just return the other one that I pre-ordered. Do I really need to hoard like a shitload of copies of every single book that he's written? Not really. I pre-ordered the other copy of Operation Bounce House like months ago, where I think it was one of those where it's like you get extra points or a discount or something on Barnes & Noble for pre-orders. I think that's when I pre-ordered it. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see if the February subscription ends up being a cool special edition of Operation Bounce House. But that's my top 10 of 2025. I was really gonna try to make this be a short video. As of right, I have no idea how much is gonna get edited out, but as of right now, when I'm looking at the viewfinder, I'm over an hour. So it's been a while. I've been sitting here talking about just 10 books. Just 10 books. I try to be succinct. I think to myself, oh, this will be a video that's like a reasonable length. No, it won't. Anyway, that's my top 10 of 2025. Did you read a bunch of books that you enjoyed in 2025 too? Let me know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for coming by. I always appreciate it. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.